Dalit, I'm going to after the period. Take 10. Okay. Ibailo, so the question was presented in the base medrash. So we have this recurring question. Do we make provisions for a debtor when we're collecting from him? Do we leave him with his basic needs? We do that for a person who makes a donation for purposes of erkin. That's a pasuk in the Torah. But we do that with respect to a Baal Chov, a creditor who's taking from a debtor. So mikam micha me'erkin. Do we make a gezerah shava of what we call a micha from the case of erkin? That in the case of erkin, it says v'machu me'erkecha. That you have to leave him with the basics, and in the case of a malvin, a love, creditor and a debtor, it says it's also lashon micha. So do we have sort of exera shava from the case of erchin to the case of a creditor, or do we not? So this has been sort of a recurring question. We've been going back and forth. It's the same shorish, a mach, right? So it's one says v'chiyamucha and the other says v'machu me'erkecha. Correct. So the halacha, just not to be a spoiler, but the halacha is in Shulchan Aruch, Paskin, and Simon Sadi Zayin that we are misajin b'achov. When a creditor collects from a debtor, he is supposed to leave him with his basic needs. Okay. So Tashma the Shalach Ravin Bigarte. Ravin wrote in a letter that he sent out. David says, "Sha'alti l'chorabosai." I asked this question of all of my rabbis, all of my rebbeim. Do we learn? Thank you so much. Do we learn Sefer Shavu? Not Lomali Davar. They didn't tell me. They had no tradition. Baram Kachai Sasheela. However, there was a different question that was asked in the base medrash that from there we can extrapolate to the answer to this question. The question was, a person says it's not erchin, but the person for hektish purposes says that they're going to donate money to, let's say, 100 zuz. I think that's money, right? It's 100 zuz. So he says they're going to donate a money levedik kabayis to the temple treasury. Ma'ushi yasadru. So do we make provisions for that person to leave them with their basic needs? So Rabbi Yaakov mishmei there bar pada. Rabbi Yaakov said the name of bar pada. Rabbi Yirmiyah said mishmei de Ilfa. Ilfa, remember him? He's the good friend of Rabbi Yochanan who went off to business, right? So Amri. Yeah, that's correct. And said, tell me anything, I'll find you a Tosefta that proves the whatever point you're going to, whatever halacha you're going to tell me, right? That's right. So amikavachom and mibachom. So they said, well, we can derive a kavachom from the case of bachov. Ma bachov shemaksiv and ein misadrin. The case of the bachov, where when the creditor is taking collateral to assure the payment of his loan, he has to return each night. He has to return the pillows, and each day he has to return the plows. So Amos, despite the fact that there is that requirement of Hashev Tashiv Lo that the Torah says, nonetheless, the assumption here from from those who are answering the question, they were mentioning Ein Masajin, that with a Baal Chov, when the loan is eventually collected, you don't have to provide special provisions for the creditor. So therefore, Hekdesh Ein Maksiv, and there is no pasuk in the Torah that says that with Hekdesh, when if there would be any collection by hekdesh to assure somebody's fulfillment of their donation, that they have to return whatever would be needed by a person each night or each day. There's no halakha of that sort. Eno din, so it should certainly follow that shei misajin, that there's also, when the collection is actually made, provisions don't have to be provided for the basic necessities. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, and Rabbi Yochanan gave a different answer. So that was what Rabbi Yaakov said, what Rabbi Yirmiyah said, and then Rabbi Yochanan said in answer to this question, that neder, with respect to where misadrin for hekdesh not, there's neder be'erka chaksib, that I don't have to run to the case of Baal Chov. I have the pasuk that has a hekesh between the case of erchin and the case where a person makes a neder, where they make a vow, say a donation to hekdesh, a donation to Beis Hamikdash. My erchin misadrin, just like in the case of erchin, we are misadr. Av hekdesh misadrin. So too in the case where a person makes a donation for hekdesh, when we take his money, we take his assets, we do leave him with basic provisions. He didn't have to talk about Baal Chov altogether. So the only one who mentioned Baal Chov in passing, That was Rabbi Yaakov and Rabbi Yirmiyah. So they did mention in passing that we're not misajin the Baal Chov. The Idach, okay, the first opinion that said that we derive from the case of the creditor that we're not misader, says the pasuk that compares a neder donating to the base of Mikdash to Erchin. So this is Rabbi Yochanan. So what is he? I'm sorry, Rabbi Yirmiyah and Rabbi Yaakov. What do they do with a pasuk that compares neder to Erkecha? They know the comparison to from neder to Erkecha doesn't mean that we're misadrin, that we make provisions for a person who makes a donation to the base of Mikdash. It means that if they would say that they're making a donation basically according to the value of their brain or the value of their heart or the value of their liver, which we say is an Eber Shehaneshama Teluyabo, is an organ that the person's life depends upon. So just like if somebody would say the erech, the value of my liver is an obligatory upon me, that I have to pay their full value. The value of my heart is upon me, they'd have to pay their full value, because it says the erkecha nefashos, that anything that relates to the person's lifeblood, their ability to live, so that's considered like their entire value. So just like we say, the Torah says we say that with respect to Erkin, we would say that with respect to a neder. A person says, I'm donating to the base of Mikdash, the value of my heart, they'd have to give the value of their entire body. My Erkin nidan b'chvodo, according to the chavod, the dignity of their entire body, afektish nidan b'chvodo, they would have to pay that full value. That's how Rabbi Yaakov and Rabbi Yirmiyah would learn the hekesh between nidarim and erchim, but not that it means that you are misadrin when it comes to hektish. Okay, so now the Gemara asks, fine. So we brought in passing, it seems that there is, yeah, if it's for a man, it's 50, when he's between 20 and 60, for a woman, it's 30, yeah. So we brought this opinion in passing that it sounds like a misadrin, that we don't make provisions for Baal Chov. So now it says the Gemara, why don't we derive it from a Kavachomer? We know that in Erkin we do make provisions. So even if there is no special Gzeira Shava, why don't we derive from a Kavachomer? The case of Erkin, there is no pasuk in the Torah that says Hashev Tashiblo. That's if the hekdesh, the base of Mikdash, when a person would say that they're making a donation of Erchin, of Erech, so then if they would take collateral, they wouldn't have to return it every night and day. So nonetheless, the Torah says that misadrin, that you do have to make provisions. So Ba'achov shemakzir eno din misadrin. So the Ba'achov, where I do have exeris sakos of Hashev Tashib Lo, shouldn't be a kavachomer that I have to make provisions when I do collect from the debtor. So I'm a crop. No. That the special Xeris Akasa Be'erkin says explicitly that it's only a localized thing when it comes to Erkin. Who below Ba'achov says Machu, that only in case of a person who makes a donation for Erkin do we make provisions for him, and not a Ba'achov, not for a debtor that a creditor is collecting from. Be'idach, I Achie B'makuso, Mitzkilaso, Bi'ad Sofo. So the other opinion would say, namely the Tanakama of our Mishnah, because Rashi says the Idach is going on the Tanakama of our Mishnah, who says that if the debtor dies, so then the collateral never has to be returned to the Yorshim. That means the creditor gets to collect it forever, even if it's something which is a basic need of the debtor, like his plow or his pillow, he gets to keep it forever. Therefore, we do have an opinion we know that holds that we are misad in the Baal Chov, and that's in fact how we paskin. So how would so what would our Tana do with the word who? Who seems to indicate that it's only a localized din be'erche? No, the word who means that the person has to be poor from the beginning to the end, in order for him to be off the hook in terms of not paying the full erech. But if when he makes the donation, when he makes the pledge, he's poor, and then before he's going to be evaluated, he becomes rich, so then he would have to pay the higher amount. So now we ask the question in the reverse direction. Why don't we say in the case of Hekdesh that if Hekdesh is taking collateral for a person's pledge to Hekdesh, they should have to return it. They should have to return a pillow every night and the plow every day, just like a Baal Chov. The Torah says you got to do that. Hashev Tashiv Lo, right? If we assume like the opinion, that with respect to a Baal Chov, after all, it doesn't say so explicitly in the Torah, that you're misadrin, that you make provisions when you collect a loan. So if we say ein misadrin, nonetheless, maksirin, the Torah says you got to return every night and day the basic of the collateral that the person needs or to live. So hektish and misadrin, einodin shemaksirin. So in the case of hektish, where I have a gezeres hakasuv, I have gezeres hakasuv b'machu me'arkecha, that misadrin, so shouldn't it follow as a kavachomer that we would apply a shev tashib? So I'm across. So he says no, because it says explicitly with respect to the case of a Baal Chov, it says that you're supposed to give back the bedding to the debtor every single night, and then you'll get a bracha. So it means that you give back when you're going to get a bracha. Hekdesh doesn't give out brachos. Hekdesh is just a temple treasury entity. Yatsa Hekdesh ain't sarach bracha. Hekdesh does not require the giving out of brachos. Well, is that true? Is that true that there's no bracha that's supposed to be obtained or given when it comes to hekdesh? Don't we say that when it comes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if you eat, you're supposed to make a bracha. You eat food, you're supposed to make a bracha. Rather, if you want to answer the question, you can answer the question as follows: that it says that when you give back, when a creditor gives back at night the pillows to the debtor and the plow during the day, so he gets credit for having given tzedakah, for charity. And hekdesh, however, does not need charity. Mishut tzarach tzedakah. So if it would be a bracha, so that's not going to be a good proof. But a better proof is that hekdesh does not require tzedakah. Hekdesh is considered to be rich. Hekdesh, the temple treasury, is supposed to be the richest of all of our resources. It doesn't need tzedakah. Maybe you have obligations to give, but it's not a poor entity. It's not a begging entity. So that's the idea. Mishut tzarach tzedakah, yotze hekdesh ain't tzarach tzedakah. To a poor man that you took his collateral, so you got to return it every night. But the hekdesh is not considered to be poor, so therefore you don't have to give back the hekdesh every single night. Okay. Yes. Check whatever you're on.
Is actually coded. You can't be credited with tzedakah for something that you yourself don't own.
I'm sorry, why don't you own? What if I'm giving to hekdesh, so yeah.
When the creditor, when
the creditor returns the collateral to the debtor, it's considered like he does own it. That's the idea. That's the din of Rabbi Yitzchak that we derive from this pasuk, that there is considered to be an ownership of the collateral. Yeah. So therefore, he does get credit for tzedakah when he gives it back. Okay. Ashkechei Rabba bar Ravua Eliyahu. So Rabba Ravua found Eliyahu a Navi of all people, and he was like walking along the cemetery. Why not? It was a cemetery. It was a non-Jewish cemetery. I don't know. The question is, what was Rabbi bar Ravua doing there? Okay, so anyway, he finds Eliyahu a Navi in a non-Jewish cemetery. So Amalei figures, hey, here's Eliyahu a Navi. Let me ask him a question. I'll ask him a shaila. Says, they can't seem to figure this out in the Gemara. They're going back and forth. To tell me, do we provide provisions for a debtor or do we not when the creditor collects his loan? So Amalei, yeah, say Gzeira Shava. We hold by that Gzeira Shava. It says we hold by the Gzeira Shava. And just like by Yerkin, Gabi Yerkin Sivi Machu Merkecha, Gabi Bachok Sivi Chia Mucha Chicha. And therefore, we see that that it should apply that we're masajin the Bachov. There's a long Tosos here. Tosos says that Eliyahu Hanavi was just kind of trying to push him off, but he didn't really mean it. He was saying, yeah, this is the basis for the opinion. And so that says that you're masajin the Bachov, this is the basis, but we don't really hold that way. But lahalach, we do baskin that way. Then the next question on the top of Kufi Yudalin on a base, Minayin la'arum shelo yitrom. How do we know that a person who's naked should not make a bracha? It really means he shouldn't make a bracha when he takes truma. Generally speaking, we assume that the taking of truma is going to require a bracha because we have a rule. We have a rule that if you're going to make a bracha, you need to be properly dressed. That your nakedness should not be shown. The beginning of that pasuk is talking about when you're in front of kedusha. Kadosh, when you're in the presence of holiness of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, so then you shouldn't have nakedness. You shouldn't display your nakedness. So we see from here that when you make a bracha on being Torim Truma, you have to be properly clothed. So Amalei, so then Rabba Baravuna asked a question of Eliyahu Navi. He said, Rabba Baravua, he said, I have a question for you. What in the world are you doing in the cemetery? Amalei Lav Kohenu, aren't you a Kohen? There are different traditions. Tosus points out there are some midrashim that indicate that Eliyahu Navi was from Binyamin, that he was from Gad. He was. There's only one tradition that says he was a Kohen, but so it could be he's not really a Kohen. But at least Rabba Baravua. Rabba, yeah, according to that tradition. So Rabba Baravua was asking, aren't you a Kohen? What are you doing in the base of Kvaros? My Kohen Umar, my time Makai base of Kvaros. In my Inyan, this is a famous expression that the poskim invoke from time to time. My Inyan Kohen Eitzel basic Kvaros. Well, what's a Kohen doing in a basic Kvaros? I always say that when people ask me whether I ever have plans of traveling to Eastern Europe, from the concentration camps. I say, I can't go. I say, Ma'inyan Kohen Eitzel basic Kvaros. That's right. Yeah, exactly. So can't go if you're a Kohen. There are certain places you're supposed to avoid. So Amalei, lo Masli Mar Taros. So he said, Eliyahu Navi said, didn't you learn Taros? We have Mishnayos. One seder of Mishnayos is Taros. The Tanyan said that there's a brisa in connection with Taros that says, quotes Arishim Ben Yochai, in Shulchan Aruch, we're machmir like the other shita, but Rav Moshe Feinstein says, "Mi'ikavid do we hold like Rav Shimon Yochai?" Rav Shimon Yochai Omer kivrei and shlovdei kochavim emetamin, that the corpses and the graves of the ovdei kochavim do not spread tumah, at least not tumas oel. Shnei ma'ava etain soni son marisi, that God refers to us, the Jewish people, as His flock. Adam atem, you're considered to be man. And when do we say that there's such a thing as tumas oil? That if there's a grave, that you're not allowed to hover above the grave can't be above you. So when do we say that there's such a thing as, or that you and the grave can't be underneath the same enclosure? So when do we say that? That's when the pasuk of tumas oil would be applicable. What's the pasuk? It's in Parshas Chukat. Adam kiyamus ba'oel. It says Adam kiyamus ba'oel. So it says you're my flock. You're an Adam. Atem kuyin Adam, in terms of the appellation of Adam, there's an appellation Ha-Adam, which could apply to non-Jews, but as far as the appellation Adam, you're considered to be Adam. The kuyin Adam. The non-Jews are not called Adams. The laws of Tumas Oel do not apply to them. So Amalei, so he said, that's good. He thanked Eliyahu Navi for telling him this mission of Raisa from Taros. But he said, I don't learn Taros. Why I wouldn't have learned this. I'm like, I don't have time to learn properly the four Siddharim of Mishnayos that are applicable to us nowadays. Namely, we have Moed and Noshim and Ezekin and Kotshim. We have a tradition at the end of Menachos that any Talmid Chacham who learns Kotshim, it's considered as if he's actually bought Kabbanos. But Zoroim and Taros are not applicable really Eretz Yisrael. So I don't really learn that. It's hard enough for me to learn the four that are Lamaisa. So I'm like, Abba lo Matzina, Mashisa, Matzina. You think I'm going to have time to learn Taros? So I didn't know this brisa. So Amalei, so Eliyahu Navi wasn't impressed by that. He said, what do you mean you don't have time to learn everything? Why don't you have time to learn? So Amalei, well, Dechikali Milsa, because I have a hard time making a living, and I just I have to go out and I have to sweat by my brow in order to feed the children. The Milsa period Dabre. So Eliyahu Navi took him for Aile the Gan Eden, and he took him to Gan Eden. He said, in Gan Eden we have things that are worth a lot of money. I'm going to give you something so you'll be able to have money to feed your family. You'll have more time to learn. So Amalei Peshota Gelimach. So he said, take your clothing off, take your garment off, and Safi, and you should gather. You can wrap them in your garment, and Shako Mehani Tarfi. And there are these leaves, like these magical leaves that smell this unbelievable reach of Gan Eden. The reach, right? Shir Berecho Hashem, the most beautiful scent in the world, is going to be worth a lot of money. So take all of the leaves and collect the leaves. So Safa Shako, so he collected them and he took them. Kavanafik, as Rabbi Baravua is leaving Gan Eden, Shama, he hears a voice to come. Who's taking all of his reward for the world to come, like Baba Barabua. Most people, they're satisfied that they're going to get their reward in the world to come, not in this world. He's already taking an advance from his the reward in the next world, so he's not going to use it up. He's going to use up his reward of Olam Haba in this world. So he realized that's not a good idea. I don't want to do that. So Nafat, so therefore he decided, I'm going to scatter out from my garments all of these leaves, Shadanu. So he scattered them out. Nonetheless, even though he scattered out the leaves, the beautiful aromatic scent of the leaves still remained on the garment. So Sakat Galima Recha, the Galima itself, he picked up his garment without the leaves, but the garment itself had collected through the presence of the leaves in the garment. So it had spread onto the scent of the leaves had spread onto the garment, and now everybody wanted this unbelievably delicious smelling garment. So Zavne Betracer Alpe Dinri, he was able to sell that garment of his, that cloak of his, for 12,000 dinarim, which is an enormous amount of money, and he had enough to be able to take care of himself, but he didn't want to take care of himself because he didn't want to eat up his reward in this world, so he gave it all to his sons-in-law. So this way, his sons-in-law would leave him alone. Palgino Buse, he gave the money all to his sons-in-law, and everybody was satisfied, and life went on. Hopefully, he was able to learn afterwards Taros. That's right, to the sons-in-law, because the sons are not going to take care of you. The daughters will take care of you, so you got to take care of the sons-in-law. So it says in the Torah that if the debtor that you took the collateral from was a poor person, you're not allowed to sleep with his collateral. You have to return it to him. But if he's a rich person, so then you are allowed to sleep with his collateral. So what does it mean? Do we say that it isn't you're not allowed to use somebody's collateral? Rashi says it's one thing to take the collateral, but if you're going to use it, you're going to sleep in the collateral, you're going to get benefit from it. So what relationship are we talking about here? It's a creditor-debtor relationship. The creditor is going to get benefit from the collateral, so that's going to count as ribbis. He'll end up collecting his loan, but he'll also get benefit from the collateral. That'll be ribbis. So what do you mean? He's not allowed to sleep with the rich man's pillow either. So the hakikamer, what? Yeah, double dipping. So I'm a no. It would be ribbis if again. I guess if there's no ketitza, you're saying there's no ketitza, that he didn't stipulate ahead of time he's going to do it. So he says, so it could be ribbis gomer if it was a stipulation. If it wasn't a stipulation, then maybe it would be a bak ribbis. But but if he stipulated it, it could be ribbis gomer. So Amar Sheshes Hachi Kamer. So Sheshes says that no, what it means is as follows: that if he's a poor person, then you shouldn't go to sleep with the pillow in your possession. You have to return it. Asher, if it's a rich man, he doesn't need your pillow. He has plenty of extra pillows. Then you can keep the pillow at night, but you're not allowed to sleep with the pillow because then you'd be getting benefit. You can go to sleep. Don't go to sleep on that pillow, Eddie. But you can go to sleep on your own pillow, and you can have his pillow in the next room. Then it wouldn't be a ribbis problem. So we learned that if you lend money to somebody, you're not allowed to take a collateral of and you don't have to return the collateral. Does this make any sense? Not really. And you violate all of the prohibitions of the Torah, Hashev, Tashivlo, and so forth, that you're obligated not to hold on to his collateral. So what do you mean? You just said you're not obligated to return it. So what is it? Is it that you can't take it, or you're not obligated to return it? It sounds like we're speaking out of both sides of the mouth over here. So my kamar. So Amar Sheshes. So Sheshes says you got to fill it in a little bit. Haki kamar. It means as follows: Hamavis chavero. If you make a loan to somebody and Rashai Lamashkino, you're not allowed to take collateral from the person. But if you did take collateral from the person, then you have to return it. You have to return it every single evening if it's the person's pillow and so forth. And when it says that you're violating all of these different prohibitions, it means if you didn't return the collateral. If you didn't return the collateral, so then you're violating lo sishka bavoto, hashev tashiv, adbo hashemesh tishivenu, all of these different rules. So Rava has a different interpretation. He says, Hakikama, this is what it's saying. It's saying that Hamalbis Kavero Eno Rashai Lamashkino, that if you lend the money, you're not allowed to simply take the person's collateral just like that. The Mashkino, but if you did take it, Chayav Lahachsilo, you have to return it. When is that? When does this apply? This applies as follows. It applies Shemashkino Shalo B'Shasal V'Aso. If it wasn't at the time of the loan. Our entire sugya in the Gemara, the Mishnah, the whole sugya in the Gemara, is talking about when you made a loan and then at a later point in time, you took collateral. So you can't go into the person's house. You have to return it. All of these, you got to leave the person what they need. All of these things are applicable when it's not at the time of the loan. However, if at the time of the loan, you ask the person for some collateral in order to give you security for the loan, that's perfectly fine. None of these laws apply. None of these laws apply. You don't even have to return it. And when is it that you would violate all of these different prohibitions for not returning the collateral? Aresha. Now, you're only holding on to the collateral. You're only holding on to the collateral until the loan is repaid. When the loan is repaid, you return the collateral. So you're not going to end up taking more than the loan itself. Yeah, correct. Good point. So Aresha, so when we say that the person violates all the prohibitions, it's going on the Resha. It's going on the case where the collateral was collected Shelo b'shasov, so not at the actual time of the loan. So Tani Rav Shizvi, Tani Rav Shizvi, Kamei Derava. Adbo Hashemesh to Shiben Olo, that you have to return the collateral up until the sun sets. Zuk Sus Laila, that's talking about the person's pajamas. You have to return the pajamas to him during the daytime until the sun sets. It sounds like it's inverted. It should be the other way around. Yeah, it's true. And then it says that you return the collateral to him. When the sun sets, that's when he should get the collateral. Yeah, that's talking about Zuksus Yom. That's the garment that he has to wear during the day. Make sure he has it at night. What? Doesn't sound right. Why should you give him at night his day garment? Or the and why should you give his pajamas to him during the daytime? It sounds like it's the Sarabah said to Bav Shizri, it sounds like it's the other way around. You got it inverted. So Shizri said, Amalei Ismaya. So this brisa that I was taught, that I just recited to you, should I just strike it from my collection? So Rabbi said, no, you don't strike it from your collection, just reinterpret it. Amalei lo hakikamer. This is what it means. It means as follows. Got to add a few words. What is it that you return to the debtor during the daytime until the sun sets? That's his daytime garment. So why did it say nighttime? So it meant, no. It means that you have the right to hold on to it during the nighttime because he doesn't need it during the nighttime. And this idea that you are supposed to give it to him when the sun sets, that's talking about his pajamas. Zuksus Laila, but it says Bayom. It says the Brisa had said Zuksus Yom. No, it meant this is the Ksus. That you have the right to hold on to during the day because the debtor doesn't need the pajamas at night. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Mashkina Umeis. Rabbi Yochanan said, if you took the collateral and now, yeah, that's the way we hold. The debtor gets his pajamas at night and his daytime garment during the day. Yeah. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Mashkina Umeis said that if the creditor took the collateral and now the debtor died. So normally a creditor is not allowed to collect metaltalin, movable property from Yorshin, from heirs. But in this case, since this property already was considered in the creditor's possession because he had already taken it as collateral, so he's allowed to collect it in payment of his debt from the descendants, from the heirs, from the children. So we have a kasha on the statement of Rabbi Yochanan because Amar Rabbi Meir. Once you take the mashkon, so why do you return it? Or why does the creditor return the mashkon after he's taken it as collateral? What's the point of having collateral if you're going to return it? What do you mean, what's the point? The Torah said you got to return it. That's what the Hashev Tashib. So that would be kind of the explanation as shaped as shivlo as avot. The Torah says to return it. What kind of a question is that? No, the question means as follows. Since you're going to have to return it anyway, every single day is going to be a pain in the neck. Every day you got to return the collateral. So why take it in the first place? It was just going to, every single day they have to go back to the debtor's house. Here's your pajamas, here's your plow, whatever. So why bother yourself and do it? Lama chosren umimashkinin. Why do you? Why is it that you keep on taking it again and again as collateral? So the answer is shalotei shavias mishamatoso, so that the Shemitah year is not going to cancel the debt. Because if you have something which is labeled as a mashkon, it's in the hands of the malveh. So then it's not canceled, and the debt itself, which is represented by this mashkon, is not going to be canceled because it's considered as if there's already a collection process. Below yasem metaltalin sabanav, and also because of the fact that this way it won't be considered to be metaltalin. It won't be considered to have the status of a movable property in the possession of the heirs, because it's going to be in the possession of the creditor, because he takes it every single time. So taima the hadar umashkene, but it sounds from this brisa that the advantage of chosren mamashkinen, that the creditor keeps on taking it again and again, is so that in the event that the debtor dies, there's a good chance that the collateral will be in his possession, and therefore it won't be canceled by the Shemitah year, and he'll be able to hold on to it, and he won't be prohibited from grabbing it from the debtors. But otherwise, it sounds like from the heirs. Otherwise, it sounds like he wouldn't be able to grab it from the heirs. And we said, according to Rabbi Yochanan, said, even if at the time of the death of the debtor, it was in the hands of the heirs, the creditor can grab it even then. But it sounds from the brisa that if it wasn't actually in the possession of the creditor at the time of the debtor's death, he wouldn't go after the heirs. So we had anyway, the brisa didn't make 100% sense, because it says lama machzirin. So we already changed the wording of the brisa a little bit to explain what it really means. So Taratzaki, so we can explain it a little bit more too, to be consistent with the din of Rabbi Yochanan. The question is, since you have to return it, why do you take it meikara in the first place? The reason you take it in the first place, that once it has this item, whatever it is, the plow, the pillow, whatever, once it has the status of a mashkon, so it doesn't matter even if it has temporarily been returned to the debtor and then the debtor dies, it still has the status of a mashkon. Shlote shvius b'shamataso, for purposes of the loan not being canceled by the Shemitah year, and for purposes of that if the debtor dies, it won't be considered to be part of the estate, but rather will be considered to be a mashkon that has already been earmarked for the lender, and therefore the lender will be allowed to collect it from the heirs. So we'll stop here. Everybody have a good Erev Shabbos. Have a good job. Why he? No, he doesn't. The idea is that the loan itself is that normally, if I make a loan to you and the Shemitah year arrives, the Shemitah year, at the end of the Shemitah year, cancels out the loan. But